Hey there, everyone. This is Samuel Johnson, and welcome back to the Lyoko Retrospectives. And today we're going to be discussing episode 46 of Code Lyoko, Deja Vu. Then this is another plot episode, or by which I mean the overarching plot. As in the beginning of the episode, Aelita begins having more nightmares about the Hermitage estate. Only this time, there's no. Only this time, Mr. Puck and the wolves aren't there. In this case, it's Aelita herself wandering through the estate. But as she continues wandering around, she ends up seeing what looks like government agents in the door of her house, which chase after her. As a result, she ends up waking up in a cold sweat and has a slight breakdown. While for the most part she's fine and Jim is able to send her back to bed, ultimately these nightmares still get to her as the next day when during swim class she ends up getting some slight vertigo and passes out and ends up falling into the pool with Jeremy going after her. She's ultimately sent back to her room to heal up and get better, but ultimately the visions keep haunting her, so after everyone leaves, she gets stressed and goes back to the Hermitage estate to hopefully try and get some answers. In the meantime, though, during science class, Jeremy checks his laptop to see if there's any activity in Lyoko, and sure enough, a tower has been activated. As such, the group tries to make a run for it, but the teacher says no, you got to sit through all of class. So the instant class lets out, everyone, Odd, Oric, and Jeremy run off to the factory with them getting Yumi along the way. And Jeremy saying he's going to get Aelita. However, Aelita is still at the Hermitage estate. However, as she wanders through it, she begins having more visions. As she looks at the Hermitage estate, she sees that's more. She begins remembering it when it was more vibrant, when things weren't as dilapidated and broken down. And during one of the visions, as she wanders into one particular room, she has a vision of Franz Hopper playing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star on a piano that was once there. As such, she's just getting more and more weirded out, but eventually she gets snapped out of it when Jeremy calls her and lets her know about the activated tower. However, as she's running out, the government agents that she saw from her vision are standing right there in the entryway. They chase, only they don't have their glasses and there are no eyes, so that's something's creepy there. As such, Aelita manages to make a run for it as the visions of Franz Hopper direct her towards the sewers that lead to the factory, and she ends up meeting the group there, where they all transport to Lyoko. In the beginning, it looks like it's going to be pretty standard. There's not really a lot of monsters this time, just like two blocks and a tarantula. However, as Odd, Oric, and Yumi take them out, Aelita just goes to the edge of the sector and the transport to Sector 5 appears, and Aelita willingly lets it take her because she wants answers. As such, Jeremy immediately sends the group to Sector 5, and sure enough, when they get there, Aelita is getting her memory swiped by the Schifozoa, and they manage to stop it as they do, and Jeremy just wants to get them out of there, so they run to the edge of Sector 5, but once they get to the terminal, Aelita goes to the terminal and is just and continues her search. Jeremy is, of course, the rest of the group is trying to tell her to stop this because even if she gets what she wants, it won't matter if the Schifozoa manages to steal her memory. And sure enough, as she's accessing the data, Xana sends out some flying mantas to deal with Yumi and Oric. Odd got devirtualized. Odd got devirtualized in the previous room, and meantime, the Schifozoa comes to take Aelita's memory. They manage to take care of all the monsters, and they manage to get out of Sector 5 for Aelita to deactivate the tower. But ultimately, we don't really get much answers beyond to the visions. Basically, the group throws out some possibilities, such as they think that the reason Aelita was having these visions is because Xana screwed with her thanks to the virus he implanted in her, and that these are just visions that Xana implanted in her to lure her to Lyoko / Sector 5 so he could steal her memory. And bottom line, they think it's that they just throw out a bunch of possibilities, and they even throw out the possibility that he did this by activating the tower. But even Aelita says that that still seems a little weird to her because it felt like she was reliving them, something that they think is impossible since they think that to them she came from Lyoko. As such, there's still some things that are up in the air. And as such, the episode ends. With some slight hijinks as we get a conclusion to a subplot in the episode with Odd and an online girl. And when he goes to meet her, it turns out the online girl was actually Sissy. So yeah. So overall, I did like the episode. I liked it. It was nice to go back to the overarching plot of the show. Because I do want answers to what's going on with Aelita, and episodes like this kind of help fill in more of the pieces of the kind of put in more pieces of the puzzle. We see more in this case. We kind of get some more. We see that Aelita's visions are kind of getting bigger, so to speak, as I have my suspicions, and based on what I do learn, and based on what we learn later, I'm not going to get into spoilers because there is stuff I know about later in the season that I'm not going to get into. But based on what we know later in the series, I think that it does feel like there's a connection between the visions with Aelita and the Men in Black versus the visions of Mr. Puck running in the woods from the wolves. So I like that, and the fact that Aelita is now actively seeing Franz Hopper more in her visions does show there's more to it. The episode ultimately doesn't provide any answers, but it does give more hints towards it. And Aelita herself is getting more and more curious about what's going on because it feels like something is not right. And on top of that, I actually don't believe that Xana was the cause of it, especially because when Aelita was in the Hermitage estate, she saw government agents. And what I think is that those were what were created when Xana activated the tower, because while they looked similar to what Aelita saw in her vision, they looked more like phantoms because, well, they didn't have the sunglasses and they had no eyes. So my guess is that those are what Xana created when he activated the tower, because when Aelita saw them, they were not visions. They were not in the picturesque past version of the Hermitage estate that we saw them in. No, these were actually there. So pretty much that let alone lets you know that is what happened when Xana activated the tower. But again, so we the viewers know that what all the possibilities are throwing out that Xana activated the tower and is screwing with Aelita, that none of that is true. The plot line with the source of the visions is left unresolved, and it just continues filling in more pieces of the puzzle with connecting Franz Hopper, the Hermitage estate, and how it all links to Aelita. And I like that sort of thing. It's very mysterious, and by the end of the episode, it still leaves you wondering what's going on. I like that. I like it lays down future plot threads that we picked up later, and I like seeing that. I think on top of that, I love how it actually kind of feeds into what happens in the second half of the episode. While Aelita doesn't get any answers from Lyoko, it does. I think that's partly why Xana sent out the government agents. He most likely was aware that Aelita was having flashbacks, and so just took advantage of that to send out an advanced scout. Because once they got into Lyoko, because they showcased that only two people can send out the orb to transport people to Sector 5, Xana and Jeremy. So the fact that one appeared when Jeremy didn't call for it shows that Xana knew something was up with Aelita, and that she was going to let this thing take her. It's kind of like dangling a rope in front of a cat so that as they reach out to grab it. Essentially, he was dangling the possibility of answers for Aelita out in front of her, but unfortunately, it was bottom line just an empty promise. I guess a better metaphor would have been a mousetrap, but whatever. So basically, it's actually but again, yeah, I like that sort of thing, and the episode continues to build on what we've seen in previous episodes, and again, it doesn't fill in all the holes, but it does fill in enough so that you start kind of seeing more of the clearer picture, which I like. I like that. And while ultimately they don't find the solution and they come to the conclusion that, just minor spoiler, is wrong, it does make you wonder what's going to happen in the end. So, yeah. Otherwise, though, the rest of the episode is... But otherwise, yeah, that's the part of the episode that I liked, and I think that's nice, and I think that was good. The subplot with Odd and Sissy being online dating doesn't really go anywhere, aside from the gag at the end that Odd was texting with Sissy, and earlier in the episode he mentioned he had a nightmare of going on a date with Sissy, so I guess that came full circle. But otherwise, it really is just inconsequential and just there as a gag. So, yeah. Otherwise, the main plot is just Aelita and her visions and how that feeds into the overarching story. It's interesting. It's interesting, and while nothing is clear, and when we don't get any clear answers based on the episode, it is nice to still get those hints. I like that, and I think it helps continue. And it helps. And I think that's a good way of drawing in more, of keeping your audience and viewers entertained. So, yeah, overall, the episode I think is good. It lays down some more. It lays down more plot threads. It fills in more hole. It fills in more pieces of the puzzle, and overall, yeah, overall, just good episode. So, overall, just a decent episode. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching. I'm Samuel Johnson, and I'll see you next week. Sorry. Take care.